Hey everyone, this is Roberto Blake of RobertoBlake.com helping you create something awesome today. Welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, where it's all about educating and motivating creative professionals of all levels to create awesome things and share them with the world. Today, I actually have a special treat for you guys. I'm doing a rare impromptu interview with the host of Social 545, Saba and Carlos, and we're going to be talking about Snapchat because I think Snapchat is a great platform for helping you guys get your message out there, be creative in new and dynamic ways, build relationships, and we're going to address some of the myths of the platform. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how to use it, how to find awesome people to connect with, and why this platform matters, and how it's going to help you create something awesome today. So, Saba and Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. It's exciting.
Woohoo! Thanks a lot for having us, Roberto.
Yeah, you guys are technically the first official guest of the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. I usually don't do interviews.
We feel honored.
Yeah,
and it was
absolutely
great having you on Social 545. So I think we're all used to having conversations with each other. So hopefully this Snapchat conversation will help everyone understand, all the myths about Snapchat and really figure out how they can use it to benefit themselves.
Absolutely. It's super fun hanging with you guys on Blab and in other platforms. Me and Carlos have been hanging out on the interwebs for a long time.
Yeah, man. And, we hang out now 10 seconds at a time on Snapchat. So I'm really excited that, not only you're on board, Roberto, with Snap. I love how you are integrating Snapchat along with your already impressive YouTube and Twitter game. And again, just really excited to be here today chatting with you and Saba about the hottest social network around today.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, you know what? Snapchat's been around for a while and people were sleeping on it. And I think it's because there was so much weird press around it and the way people were using it was a little unsavory back in the day. But now it's a real quote unquote legit platform. And you know what? I was one of the early detractors of Snapchat. I literally had an article where I was going to write that this is one of the times Gary Vee was wrong, and I had to tear that up. And this was a couple of months ago and everything like that. I really started looking harder at the platform, being more of a practitioner, and I had to eat those words. And you remember, I wrote a Medium article, Why Gary Vee Was Right and I Was Wrong.
You know what I think it is because I've had this conversation with a lot of folks, and I think it's because our go-to mediums kind of control the way that we look at Snapchat or some of the newer platforms. And here's where I'm going with that. Let's face it, your bread and butter is YouTube. It's where you have probably the biggest reach, where you get your highest engagement, where you produce a lot of content. So when you look at Periscope, for example, even though you're creating video content, it's completely off the grain and different than YouTube. The way that you scale Periscope, the way that you scale Snapchat, completely different than how you scale YouTube, how you create content. The community that follows you on YouTube is probably different than the community that follows you on Snapchat. And again, I've had this conversation with good friends of mine that are big in the vlogging space in YouTube, and I've asked them, why haven't you jumped over to Snap? Why haven't you jumped over to Periscope? Even though you're using a very similar medium. And they say it's because my fans aren't there, essentially. The way that they're used to consuming content is on YouTube. So where I think Saba and I are kind of different is we don't necessarily have that go-to platform. I think Snapchat very quickly, and I don't want to speak for you, Saba, but just speaking for myself, I've always been platform agnostic. So the channel could go away tomorrow, and I still have the community. The community still exists. But the community is one that I can touch and reach on email. I can touch and reach on LinkedIn. I can touch and reach on Facebook. So when something like Snapchat rolls out, very similar to Gary, I joined in 2013, and I was very passive on the platform for a couple of years because, let's face it, my community wasn't necessarily there yet, but through trial and error, by actually getting to understand the mechanics, it's really empowered me to be able to turn back to some of those mediums like you see me doing on a daily basis on Twitter and evangelize not only why people should be on Snapchat, but also talk to them about the advantages of being on Snapchat. So I think it goes back to, what I said before, Roberto. If your bread and butter is on one medium, it's hard to disconnect from it. But if you are truly just platform agnostic and you're focused on the community aspect of social media, then again, the channel doesn't really matter. It's, how can you get the biggest bang for your buck? How you can get the biggest return on your engagement?
Saba, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so my experience is a little bit different. So I'm a little bit on the younger side of the millennials, and so I've been using the platform since 2011, and so I've really seen it grow. And I've always been a huge supporter of the platform. I can name 5 people off the top of my head that I got on Snapchat, and they currently use it more than me, and they have a larger following because they really took initiative. And so for me, the evolution of Snapchat was really about how you can actually create content in a very intimate way, but you can reach all the people that you want to reach. And the intention, and I talked about this in my recent LinkedIn article about, how people find you, and the discoverability feature that is not there, but it's there on other social platform, makes it so much more intentional when people follow you. And we all talk about reach and engagement and all these buzzwords, right? But really, when is it that your Twitter following actually reflects your Twitter and tweet engagement? The ratio is not there. The engagement is not there. YouTube, on the other hand, I do think the community is there. So that is a very specific platform, but that's because you're creating video content, right? You can't automate that. A bot can't engage with that. It's very real, right? And so I think when you come down to the basics, Snapchat really is able to capture real life moments, right? In 10 seconds. And people were so worried initially about the 24-hour kind of ephemeral effect of, oh, it goes away and I have to create new content. But that's actually more accurate of how we can consume content than how it is on other social platform where there's an algorithm that makes it stay there for days and days. And so for me, Snapchat has always been extremely intuitive. Now, initially, it didn't have the features that it has today with all of the lenses, all the creative freedom that you have. It didn't have the engagement capabilities. But as it has grown up, it has learned how to cater to its audience. And when I say audience, it means the people that are early adopters and really understand how to use emerging platforms. And the second thing I'm going to say is I think it's difficult for people usually to adopt new platforms because they have to adopt new behavioral kind of tendencies. And Snapchat is not intuitive if you're not on the platform. And so you have to take the time to really learn it. And for people, that's daunting. They don't want to do something they don't know how to do. And the first question sometimes when you tell someone, oh, you should get on this platform, they ask you, well, how can I streamline that? How can I automate that? And there are zero answers for Snapchat because you have to create content daily. And so I think at the end of the day, it's about intimidation and it's about the fact that people are just afraid. People don't want to jump into something that they're not used to. But really, some of the best content and some of the best communities are born out of those because the people that are able to use it so well and so beautifully that they really capture an audience that no other platform is able to do. So that's why I have always been all in on Snapchat. And I'm just happy there's now a community that's more openly, accepting the platform. And people like Gary Vee are really evangelizing it. And Gary Vee didn't start evangelizing it in January of this year. He was talking about it 2-3 years ago. He's an investor. And so he's always had a pulse. But this was the time to really say, okay, the masses are going to flood in. And this is your moment where you can get disproportional value if you build an audience now.
Exactly. Saba bringing the fire today.
She always brings the fire, Roberto.
That's true.
Snapchat just gets me fired up more than anything.
No, one thing I want to build upon that, you talked about it not being counterintuitive. One of the hangups that most people run into just right out of the gate on Snapchat is that it's not as easy to grow your following. If you don't know what you're doing, it's not as easy to grow your following on Snap like it is Twitter or Facebook. Like, let's face it, most of these social channels nowadays, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, you can join and you can either upload an email list to identify who from your email list is on these platforms. You can also go ahead and connect like your Gmail and port in followers. Like on Twitter, for example, you can connect your Gmail and it'll go ahead and identify who on your Gmail contacts is on Twitter. And you can literally just go down a list and just click and follow people. So where I hear from most people that jump on, they're like, oh, I have all these followers on Twitter. I have all these connections on LinkedIn or all these friends on Facebook. If I go on Snapchat, I have to start from ground zero. People automatically rush to those vanity metrics. They all of a sudden rush to wanting to have this big, massive size of growth on Snap. And believe it or not, guys, like that's one thing that I love most about Snapchat. It really forces you to engage. It forces you to really start focusing on the premise of social media, which is the word socializing. I think Snapchat puts the social back into social media. And I say that because over the last 3 years I've been on Snap, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people about Snapchat, just asking them, are you on Snapchat? Oh, you're not? Here's why you should get on. I'm like convincing people. Like, I almost sometimes feel like I'm a sales rep for Snapchat, the way I talk about it so passionately. And I'll tell you this, guys, the first year I was on, I maybe had 5 friends on there, and I would still engage with the same level of enthusiasm and passion that I have today, because I felt like, wow, these are like 5 people that are like really dialed in. They're watching my content. I'm able to see what they do on a normal basis. And I think, again, if you really take the vanity metrics out of it and you focus on just using this, even if it's to engage with 100 people, let's take, for example, I have 57,000 people that follow me on Twitter. And I'm using that loosely, follow me, because I often question how many of those people actually see my content. Let's take 100. Those 57,000 people, those 57,000 followers, let's take 100 people that are really dialed into my message. 100 people are really dialed into the content that I post, what I'm doing, what I have to say. If those 100 people really band together as a community to support me, that's almost more powerful than having 57,000 followers, again, putting the emphasis on the vanity metrics behind it, of people I really don't know what they do with the content that I post. So that's where I throw on the flip side. It's not so much about the quantity on Snap as it is the quality of people that follow you.
I totally agree with that. And I would say that, to your point, both of you know that, like, we've talked about these conversations both online and offline about social media not being nearly social enough anymore. And I think that a lot of people are bullish on social media and on certain platforms for that reason. To you guys' point, like, it's hard for some people because they have romanticism about their platform being their bread and butter. YouTube, for me, wasn't even like my first, like, what I consider to be my major platform. It just scaled faster and bigger than the rest of them. So I put more time and investment there. Sure, practicality. I love Snapchat because I don't have to put the same level of work that I do into a YouTube channel to communicate something of value or that's interesting to an audience. And I can get more call to action, more call to engagement, more engagement to action, more return on experience, as our friend Joel Comm would say, out of Snapchat than any other platform, with one exception, Blab. Because there I can have a face-to-face human conversation, kind of the way that we're having here in Skype, but also then with a community of people involved that can rotate in and out, whereas Skype's private, we can do that publicly the same way we would at a coffee shop. So I totally agree with you. The platform matters. It's good to be platform agnostic. Like, I'm more platform agnostic than people might realize. Hence doing a podcast here with you guys and doing the YouTube channel and writing content. No, I totally agree with you, though, but I don't think that's everybody. I think you're right. I think there's some people who, unlike both of you, were in other platforms, played that game, they're used to it, they understand it, and so they'd rather be a ball player than an athlete. Mm-hmm. And so they want to play their ball game instead of just being good at sports. And I think that's the difference. So it's harder for them to pick up the racket of Snapchat. Saba, what do you think about that?
So I think it's interesting, kind of a combination of what both of you are talking about is about, being very committed and almost married to the platforms that you use. And Carlos mentioned, moving over all of your contacts. You talked a lot about, being platform agnostic. For me, I always talk about the fact that you should be where you can create your best content, where it is the least noisy. Mm-hmm. So the worst thing is to tell someone in February of 2016, go and try marketing on Facebook and not paying, right? So that almost hurts me, right? But there's so many people out there saying that because that's the proven fact. If you're doing that, you're in the wrong space. And just looking at your shirt, Roberto, Create Awesome, that is your theme, that is amazing. One of the biggest factors that Snapchat has been able to grow so quickly, and so just to throw out some numbers to give people a point of reference, Snapchat came out in 2011, and it currently has over 150 million daily users and 7 billion daily video views. Facebook came out in 2005, and it has 8 billion daily video views. So if we're talking about consumption and creation of content, Snapchat is winning by far. Now, why are they winning? Because they're empowering people to be creative on their own terms. You cannot be creative on Twitter. You cannot be creative on Facebook because they have all of these measurements and all of these guidelines on how you can put out your content. Snapchat does not do that. It gives you all of the tools, all of the features, and they say, go make something awesome. Go create something awesome. And that's why, Roberto, before we started this, you said, Saba, I'm seeing your creativity on Snapchat. Well, that's because that's the only place I can truly be creative. And it forces me to be creative because I have to keep my audience engaged. And I have to show them the power of the platform. And so empowerment of creativity is one of the weapons that Snapchat has that has given people that no other platform is doing, right? And so when you factor that in, people become obsessed because they get their own style. They get their own rhythm. Every single Snapchatter that I follow has their own way of creating content. And that's what I love. I don't want to follow someone that creates content like I do. Just like you don't want a friend that's exactly like you. That's not entertaining for a conversation. You don't want to consume information like you create content, right? And so that's one of the main reasons why Snapchat has become such an obsession with so many people. If you just ask someone, hey, I know you don't like Snapchat, but try it for a week. And here are all the features, and you go through them. I guarantee you after a week, they will not be able to get off because they have carved out their little niche that they weren't able to find on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, right? Because all these other platforms have guidelines. And so that's one thing that I think is extremely important. And in terms of discoverability, just because you're connected with someone on Instagram or on LinkedIn, it does not mean they're creating great content on Snapchat. You're following people on Snapchat because of the content they're creating. And I talked about this in the article that I wrote yesterday that I posted on LinkedIn about how to find friends. And the 3 reasons why Snapchat is winning is because they're focused on cross-pollination, utilizing other social networks that people have created to promote. They are content-centric. They don't care about metrics. DJ Khaled is going to show up right next to the person who has 0 followers. And you get to choose whose story you click on. And the second is attention. When someone adds you, it's intentional. That 2-3 seconds they take to snap your snap code, that matters in the long run. That makes them click over and over and over again if you deliver. And so why would you want to focus on a platform that people and bots and algorithms are following you and engaging with you, which actually has no ROI for a business that is trying to make sales?
Boom.
Man, Saba
Boom.
is bringing the heat today.
I told you, man.
She's bringing that real talk. Yeah, I just want to build on that. And the only numbers that matter are to the person that's creating the content. And again, I think that vanity metrics has almost ruined social media. And what I mean by that is so many marketers are just driven by what people see on the outside, see on the surface. And what really matters at the end of the day, guys, is what social is doing to really drive, whether it's revenue or engagement or whatnot, however you measure it. It's all about your brand. So again, to Saba's point, I love that on Snapchat, only I know how many people see my snaps. And it really puts the emphasis and the onus on me just to create good content. Again, play off of Roberto's shirt, create awesome. And, if Snapchat's not your thing, and let's say YouTube is, find ways that you can cross-pollinate. That's one thing that Saba and I talk a lot. Cross-pollinating across social networks is a major key to success, right? Playing off of DJ Khaled there. And what I mean by that is if you have a community on Twitter, if you have a community on YouTube, tell them to add you on Snap. Like, I don't know if you're doing this with your YouTube videos yet, Roberto, but ask them to add you on Snap. And then when you have a new video come out on Snap, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, then use Snap to talk about it. Or when you're recording. Give people like that behind the scenes preview. Like you talked before about Blab. The reason why people like Blab, the reason why people gravitate to Periscope, and the reason why they're gravitating in droves to Snapchat now is because you can actually see what people are doing in the moment, in real time. This isn't like Facebook, where I feel that Facebook has become manicured social media content. What I mean by that is people actually sit and think methodically through, here's what I'm going to post because I want it to come out a certain way. I want to game it because I want to get X number of likes or X number of comments. Snapchat's like, you know what? It's just go time. I'm going to just be me. And that's the beauty of where social media is headed. And if you do that consistently and you're building that community within a platform like Snapchat, all of a sudden now the residual effect is going to be more views on your YouTube content because people are going to want to consume more of you. It's going to be more followers on Twitter. It's going to be more overall engagement everywhere that you have a presence. And, I got to say, over the last 6 months alone, I have seen my social engagement skyrocket through the roof. And the reason why is because Snapchat's a platform where I can actually be Carlos Gill. I can be human. People see me in this bedroom where I'm at with a backwards hat, grinding, hustling, and you're not just seeing the manicured post where it's like, oh, hey, I'm speaking at this event. No, you see everything that goes into the progression just to go ahead and do me.
That's part of the secret of my success in any social media platform that I've been in is the fact that I'm not only super accessible social media wise, and I think this is true for a lot of people. I think this is true for you guys too. It's not just that I'm accessible social media wise. I'm accessible in terms of you can get there. You can reach there. I mean, because we've talked about it. To this day, I'm still using the same camera gear, the same lighting. I only upgraded the microphone, but I felt like I had to. And I kind of didn't. 10% better audio now. But I'm using the same setup that I bought at the end of 2012 to really get going with the content in the summer of 2013. And it's carried me from 0 subscribers to 80,000 subscribers in YouTube, and it's going to carry me to 100,000. I refuse to upgrade until then because I want people to know that they can do this. And when I bought that gear, it was more expensive. You can buy the same setup as me for under $750 now. So imagine how valuable the accessibility, the mindset of the non-manicured, as you would say, the non-polished, the fact that it's like you can sit there and you can make just as good content if you're good enough as a 100,000 subscriber YouTuber, because Roberto proved that by taking less than $1,000 in gear, which he expensed on his Amazon credit card, and grind your way to 100,000 if you're doing enough value, enough quality, enough talent. So I think that Snapchat and other platforms and Blab and Periscope are great for that, but I think context of platform matters. I love what you said about behind the scenes, because that's how I'm using my Snapchat. And I haven't told my YouTube audience about it yet because I want to promote Snapchat in more than just a come follow me kind of way. Mm-hmm. I want people to understand what I'm doing with the platform, but also what they can do that creates value, what lets them create awesome with this platform. Because I agree, I love what I've seen from you there, Carlos, and just seeing more of your life and more of how you work and how you grind and how you hustle and what you're thinking and what you're going through. I love that personal connection. Saba, I love that I've gotten to see a whole another side of your personality and creativity. And people don't realize creativity and being outgoing and doing something different and being silly is such an attractive quality. I've seen a whole nother side of you besides the hustle and the business and just how clever you are. I got to see this whole other totally funny geeky tongue-in-cheek side of you that's really interesting and makes you this other much deeper, not that you weren't deep already, but this much deeper person. It's oh, here's a piece of the puzzle I didn't know. Here's something I haven't seen as much. Okay, cool. I want more of that. I also think that shows you what people want from you, how they relate to you as a person, And me, the cool thing that I've done, that I think is interesting is and slightly a riff off of something Gary Vee did is when I'm being a lot more okay, this is just, completely something so off the cuff. I black and white filter all that in Snapchat. You'll see a whole Snapchat story sometimes in black and white. But then I think it's also different because I'm not seeing a lot of people hit up that black and white filter. People are all about making their colors pop and their outfit and their getup and okay, cool. I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna be rogue. I'm gonna strip the color and make you think about what I'm saying.
Go ahead, Saba. I was just gonna
say, and that's the exact beauty of Snapchat. You are finding your own kind of style that you want to embrace to capture your audience, right? And so there are so many different ways you can do that, and there's no rules. There's nowhere that it says that the black and white filter doesn't work. And there's nowhere going to be an article that's correct that's going to say if you do a video in all of your Snapchats, you are going to win on Snapchat, right? Just like there's articles like that about Instagram and other platforms. I think the amazing thing is that Snapchat is all about, do you understand all of the functionality? And that is the biggest question I always get. How did you do that? How did you do this? How did you do that? How did you think about this, right? And there's just a little bit of planning involved if you want to create a really great storyline. But even if you're not intentional about the storyline, it just creates itself. And the beautiful thing I want to mention about Snapchat is that when you're creating content for your Twitter, for example, and you're buffering tweets, or you're creating content for your YouTube channel, Roberto, or if, Carlos is creating a post on Facebook, that takes a good amount of time, right? It takes between 3 to 4 minutes. It's an amount of time that you're investing that you can think back over. And the cool thing about Snapchat is because you're creating that content in 10-second intervals, you actually just stitch it together and you don't end up knowing how much time you spent on it. And that's the question I always get. People are always asking me, how long did it take you to create that story? And I say, I have no idea, because it doesn't matter, because I'm just doing it so quickly in the moment that I'm just capturing all these moments. And if you can actually, retain an audience for a minute, which is how many Snapchats, right? Within 10 seconds, that's amazing. And you barely took any time. And they are consuming your content and they're listening to your information with zero fluff and zero BS, because there is no time for you to say extra words. And that's what I absolutely love. There's no real time commitment when you think about it.
Well, I was going to say before, one thing that I love amongst the many things I love about Snapchat is there's no real formula. People ask me every single day as they get started on Snapchat, what should I be snapping about? And I tell them, honestly, I can't really tell you that, because what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. And that's like the uniqueness. There's no formula for Snapchat other than just be yourself, be real. And your snaps can be as short or as long as you want them to be. There's some people doing some really cool things out there with artwork, with storytelling and graphics and whatnot. That probably isn't something that I can deliver on, but like I have my own uniqueness. So again, like what's cool about Snap is that everyone's story is unique and individual to them. And I think that's what makes it so unique. It's not like one of these other platforms where you can say, oh, if you really want to be a thought leader in social media, follow this strategy and just, do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't work like that. So I think it really puts, again, the human element back into social networking. And I got to say, guys, I see Snapchat continuing to grow to be a huge player in our space.
I totally agree. Especially, I love the points about creativity that both of you brought up. But let's talk about some practicality with Snapchat. Let's talk about practical applications for like real world business, because at the end of the day, real world talk, we're all in business and we're all in the marketing space. So a lot of businesses follow what we're saying, not just creative people, not just artists. And even those people, I always tell people who are creative and who are artists that disproportionately their biggest weakness is not either partnering with people in the business world or not understanding the mechanics of business for themselves, and not taking that seriously or not taking marketing themselves seriously. They leave a lot on the table. I think Snapchat's a great way for them to do that. But let's talk about some practicality and some if it's not going to be ROI, maybe it is return on experience, as Joel would say. Maybe it's return on relationship, as Ted Rubin would say. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about some practical ways that you guys feel someone in business, whether they're a solo entrepreneur or whether they're a brand, can take advantage of Snapchat as a platform.
I was going to say, we talk about these returns, which I was going to throw out there. Return on engagement is something that I look at very closely in business when using social media. But the average user who's passively using social media, does not work in marketing, is not thinking about return. They're thinking about, how can I just have fun? And I think that's something that, honestly, guys, we're probably all guilty of it. We get away from that all the time. We're always looking for ways to growth hack this so we can make more money, so we can get more people to download our podcast, to buy more stuff from us. Like, I totally get it. I'm right there in the same camp with you. But I put it back on 99.9% people are not marketers. And they're going to get on Snapchat and they're going to want to know, how do I just use this just to have fun and connect with people? And again, I like to focus on the human element. Is you're going to get on this platform and you're actually able to share 10-second bursts of whatever you're doing in real time. Now, to connect that to the business side of it, if you want to try to scale this, throwing that buzzword out there that we hear a lot, from a scaling standpoint, it's just being real. It's teaching people stuff. And I think that's something that you can relate to, Roberto, because you do that every single day on YouTube. Find ways to make people better at what they're already doing. And that's where you're really going to see the biggest return on your brand, is if people start seeing Saba, Roberto, Carlos, and anyone else as, I need to follow this person, because when I wake up in the morning and I hear him or her spit their game, it actually fires me up. It helps me close more deals. It helps me connect with more people. It's knowledge that I'm gaining that I'm able to integrate. So again, if you really want to talk about return, make the return about brand equity, that you are making an investment of your time into these platforms to get other people to then follow you and get something out of it that they're going to be able to improve and step up their game.
I love that answer, Carlos, and I totally agree. And I think that even in the marketing world, regardless of what you're doing, I think people forget fun and informative works. Saba.
So I have been following a good amount of brands ever since they started their channels. There's a few channels or, Snapchat accounts, whatever you want to call it. And it was interesting to see this really cool shift. So initially, Snapchat tried to sell all these channels, right? Where they basically had big brands pay a lot of money to create content that was actually not native to the platform. So it was in vertical form, but it wasn't native to the way that you create content as a regular user.
Right.
And
we
so
can't
what
get those features then.
Exactly. And just the way that they were basically producing this content was not in a way that a regular user could. And so what happened is that the smart marketers, the ones who work at these brands, did what any normal person would do. They just got the handle for their account. So for example, I'm going to use Sephora as an example, big Sephora shopper, VIB member, all that jazz. I started following them, right? And they weren't always talking about buy this, buy that. They were telling me, oh, hey, this is this lipstick you can wear with this eyeliner. Hey, our social team is out here in Miami. Oh, we're out over here. Oh, this is what's launching. Oh, this is Kat Von D. Do you want to meet her in person? We're doing an interview with her on Snapchat. How can you entertain your audience? What does your audience want from you? That's what it comes down to. Return on engagement, return on investment, whatever you want to call it, you need to make sure your community is consuming your content. Apple Music does an amazing job at this. They create really great stories and they feature an artist every single day and they have amazing graphics. Airbnb shows you all of the amazing places that you can go from their website, right? Thrillist magazine does an amazing news reporting, but it's like he's drinking beer, he's like wearing a bacon suit, like it's really awkward, like you're never going to see it anywhere on YouTube or TV, but it's really cool because it works on Snapchat. And so you have to find a way to connect with your audience. And when I say connect, I mean, how can you make it fun? How can you make it informative? How can you show them how creative you can be? How can you humanize your brand, right? How can you show them that the people that are creating this content care about the fact that you're in their sphere? And that's what it comes down to. And whether you're a nonprofit, you can actually educate, whether you're a regular business, it doesn't matter. There are so many different ways that you can use this platform, and going back to creativity and empowering creativity, that the possibilities are really endless. I see everything from A to Z, and there are no limits and there are no rules. There's no prescription.
I love that. There's no prescription on that and everything like that. But, yeah, which from the consulting side, you would think that I'd be very against that, but I like the fact that this platform, the way you guys describe it, and humor me on this, it sounds very much like how, real talk, it sounds like real relationships. It sounds like real human relationships. It sounds like dating. There's no guaranteed answer. It's you could follow this freaking formula. Maybe it works, but what if you are doing that with somebody else and it doesn't work out and it bombs? There's no secret sauce to that other than be human. And the people are going to like you or the people are going to like you. It's you can't have a formula and say, I'm going to go in and 100 people in a room, cool, every single one of them is going to be my friend. That ain't going to work. There's no formula for that, right? I'm going to ask 100 people out and they're all going to say yes. There's no formula for that. So, I mean, not that I'm aware of, not that I've ever heard of, if there is somebody, hey, help a guy out here, but
that's a good analogy though. It completely makes sense. And the other thing is that everyone has their own taste in terms of what kind of content they want to consume. Some people only want to consume motivation. Some people only want to consume travel. Some people only want to learn. And so it doesn't really have like Carlos said, when people ask him, what should I do on Snapchat? He just tells them, do what you think is best. Do whatever you feel like you want to share with the world. There is a lot on my Snapchat that I don't share, but what I do share, I put a lot of, creativity into it. But that's all that matters, right? And people don't know what they don't know. And so you need to show them, basically how you feel like they can best use the platform to grow their audience and their community. What is going to resonate with the people that they are looking to attract?
Yep. Real talk. I want to also point out that connecting with a diversified group of people is a major key on Snapchat. And I say that because I've always had these tribes, if you will, social media marketing professionals I tend to connect with on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And then what happens is we start to just talk to the same people all the time and have the same conversation just on a different channel. What's great about Snapchat, at least from my experience, is that it's really helped expose and broaden my network beyond the same few hundred people that normally I'd chat with on other mediums. So I want to go ahead and just throw it out there. Saba and I, we have a website called Snapchat.directory, which you can go on there. You can add yourself. It's a completely free website. It's a free community. And by adding yourself to Snapchat.directory, you now add your username to a growing list. We have over 3,000 Snapchat users on this list today. It's only been out for a month, and it helps you grow your network. And, Roberto, I know you're on there. I'd love to hear any success that you've seen by being on the directory. But again, guys, it's about leveraging this medium and resources like Snapchat.directory to expand your network beyond the 10, 100,000 people that you are connecting with elsewhere. Connect with new people on Snap.
I love it, and I like that idea because I like the idea of community building. Maybe at some point in the future, I build something specifically as a website that's more community driven as far as creating value for creative people, as far as bringing them together. I've tried to do that through content, and I feel like it's worked. But you're so right. You are so right about what people obsess about is those vanity metrics, whether they're in business or even personally. I see so many people trying to game Twitter and YouTube with follow for follow and like for like and sub for sub. And it's the most irritating thing in the world because, to your point, Saba, I love the choice. I love the democracy of, personally, the YouTube channels that I subscribe to that are not research driven by me doing stuff for clients and for my consulting business or from the marketing world side of it are, I watch motivational videos like Evan Carmichael's. I watch the business stuff like Gary Vee. I watch, like Jared Polin for photography stuff and Terry White for tech stuff. Like, I'm watching very intentionally with that little bit of time that I consume, because I'm more busy creating awesome than anything else. I consume very little. I'm actually like content starved when it comes down to it. Like, I'm like, freaking stomach's grumbling for good content because I only am going to consume in these like verticals, right? So when people are like trying to get people, I think that they're neglecting the idea that it's okay to only have 30 people. It's okay to only have 100 people. It's okay to only have 40 people if they're the 40 people who really care. If they're the 40 people that really think this is valuable. If they're the 40 people that like you. I'd rather have, you had a thing that you threw out, Carlos. Do you remember in social media masterminds that you threw out, would you rather have, would you rather have 1 million followers or 100? Was it something like that?
Yeah. Would you rather have 1 million followers or 100, I want to say, community members?
Right. I think like 100 relationships. It was something like that. You know that they did a scientific study to where you can only really theoretically keep track of like 150 like people and have a real relationship with them. They did a scientific study of that.
What was interesting about that when I posed that question was most people's answer immediately went to, I'd rather have the 1 million because 1 million followers all of a sudden is going to give me credibility and reach. And I almost felt that was the wrong way to look at it. I think that people are blinded by these vanity metrics, but it's all about the devil's in the details, as they say. So you can follow someone that has all these followers, but if they're not really adding value and helping you elevate your game, then what good does it do? I'm from the belief of I'd rather have 100 people that are loyal, that follow my brand, whether it's a personal brand or a corporate brand. They're actually going to be advocates. They're actually going to be out there as word of mouth referrals, and people are constantly saying, hey, follow this guy or follow this girl, buy from him, buy from her, because I really get value from them. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I agree. A lot of people, the number that and marketing is marketing, but like people, when they look at YouTube numbers, like they'll look at, like, let's say they look at my numbers, because I keep hearing that I'm a big YouTuber, and in my mind I'm like, well, what is that? And I probably need to do a video about that. But in my mind, like, the 80,000 subscribers number, I get why people are impressed by that number. I'm not naive, and I'm not romantic about it to where I don't understand that, or where there's some disconnect for me. I get it. But like the number that I'm really excited about when I look at is the 1 million number, and not 1 million subs. I look at 1 million minutes a month in watch time, because that's over 2 years of time that human beings spent getting value from something I put out there as a how-to channel. I look at, well, wait a minute. That's time. That's minutes out of the day that real people, bots can't do that, like spent time consuming me and finding value in what I did. That's important because they will never get that million minutes back collectively. You realize how valuable it would be for me if I could add that million minutes a month to my lifespan, that 2 years every month to my lifespan? I'll be around for a while if I could do that. Like, that's what I get excited about. I get excited about the 5,000 comments a month. And I'm not throwing these numbers just to throw these numbers. I'm making the point of I care more about that because that's proof of a relationship. That's proof of when we talk about what matters to you, it's how you invest your time, because you'll never get that back. It's how you invest your energy, and it's what do you spend money on. When people tell me that I care about something, I go and I take a look at them, and I look at how they spend their time. I look at how they spend their energy, their effort, and then I look at how they're spending their money, which is a finite resource in a lot of cases. So I look at that, and so when someone says, well, I really want to accomplish this thing, or when someone says, I really care about this cause, or I'm really passionate about XYZ, I sit there and I vet it and I think about it in my mind and I'm like, that doesn't add up. The action doesn't map. So when you say you care about your community and your followers, I look and I see, Carlos, I see you replying to people like a fiend in Twitter. I look and I see you reply a video to like my snaps. Saba, I see you like snap me back or snap me messages or whatever and everything like that. I snapped Amy like instead of texting her, I snapped Amy like a welcome home snap. I'm using Snapchat to give the context and the excitement of like how I really feel as a human being when I connect with people, versus I can't do that as easily passively in a YouTube comment or in a Twitter post unless I do Twitter video, which I'm all about that Twitter video.
Yeah.
So,
and you brought up,
that's it.
I was just going to say, you brought up a good point about, creating the content. And one of the most important things about Snapchat is people don't know how to create the content a lot of times. I mean, you mentioned the black and white, and someone might be watching this video and say, how do I activate that, right? Or someone might see colored text and they don't know how to activate that. And so there's all these little, they're not even tips and tricks. They're functionality that's built in as a tool to help you create content and for you to convey your message or your creativity in a certain way. And so Carlos and I were constantly getting questions about, how do you do the long form text? How do you put the music? And there's so many different little things that we do to create these. And so him and I did a course, Snapchat for Beginners. It's on Udemy. It's a really great course for anyone who basically is getting on Snapchat or is on Snapchat and wants to learn all of its features. We, showcase a lot of the examples of, how they can use the platform. I have, 15 examples of, very creative ways that I've created content on there just as a reference point, how to get to those things, how to get started, engagement. So that's a cool resource for people that want to check it out. Also, joining the directory is a really great way to just grow your community. It's just about discovery. We sent out our first survey actually yesterday, and we have gotten amazing feedback. And so we're just looking to really grow it to help the people that are looking to find more people on Snapchat. And just like Carlos said, expand your network, right? We are so used to running in the same circles that it's important to discover new people that are creating amazing content on Snapchat, because the content creation there is different than any other platform. And every platform has its own native kind of personality.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And I'm actually taking that course. Whenever I finish, I'm actually going to do a review of it because it's helping me understand Snapchat a lot more. And it's actually going to help me with educating my audience on how to use Snapchat and doing things like how to add the filters or how to unlock the trophies, what you're supposed to do. And then also I really want to speak more than like letting people like have the technical side of it. I really want to encourage them, like you said, creative examples of how to do something like cool with the platform. Like I'm using it more like a guerrilla filmmaker than anything right now, and more behind the scenes. And that's kind of how I'm going to I think entice my YouTube audience and my other social media audiences is like, what does behind the scenes look like of Roberto's stuff? Like, people have begged me for like a behind the scenes like office tour or YouTube like setup and everything like that. And I'm not going to give it to them on YouTube unless I decide to do it sometime later. But like, I'll give that to Snapchat people first.
Right. And that's an perfect example of how you're using it in terms of, I'm going to throw out a buzzword, content strategy. And you're doing a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of exclusive content. And so you can even run, a promo where you say, for the next 10 minutes, I will answer anyone's question who snaps me a video on Snapchat, right? And so that's a direct way for them to ask you a question and get your time back for them. And so there are, I can think of a million ways, right? But that's just, you just threw out an example of how you're going to be using it.
Oh, I can bring back Ask Roberto as a show if I do that. Like,
I say you do it. You should.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we do that. And no, that'd be cool because it'd be different content and it's a different thing. And like, I can change the format of that show. I can do it like in front of the bookcase instead, and it could just be a lot more laid back. It can be a lot of fun. And I can answer more questions because, like, I get questions sometimes that have no relation to, like, the video that I did for that day or whatever in the comment section sometimes. I'd love to have some kind of more Q&A format. And I think I need to tell my audience about the fact that, yeah, I do that stuff on Periscope, or, hey, come to the Blab show, or, hey, snap me. So I think that context of platform matters. I always talk about it. Me, Amy, and Gary Vaynerchuk always talk about context of platform. Like, I know other people do, but I think we're the three people that like harp on it. I think we beat that horse to death, and that PETA needs to come after us for it. So, that's my thought on it.
Nice.
Cool.
This has been a good conversation about Snapchat. I hope that the viewers that watch that kind of get a sense of, why they should get on Snapchat. If they are on Snapchat and they feel like they're really, like struggling to create content, or they feel stuck and they feel intimidated, they kind of, they can follow Roberto, they can follow Carlos, they can follow I. We're all open to give tips. We're all very accessible, like you mentioned. And so hopefully this gives them a little bit more context and kind of debugs all the myths that have been going on since this platform came out.
Like, Carlos, before we wrap things up, do you and Saba want to speak to like some of the most prominent myths about Snapchat in a really like short form, rapid fire kind of like way, and then we'll close out the show. By the way, this will go out later on YouTube just because it's harder to do like some of the screen cap editing. I gotta make sure everything is cool. But if nothing else, this will definitely go out on the podcast. And like, I'm really ramping up more of the podcast. Maybe this will be the second audio episode of the podcast for this week or something. So we'll see. But why don't you guys give us some final thoughts on the myths of Snapchat, and then tell people about the course, the directory, and also where they can find you.
I definitely think a myth that needs to be debunked right out of the gate is Snapchat is not a sexting app only. I want to preface and say only because I hear crazy stories from people in terms of snaps that they get, random snaps that they get, and we won't go into that because this is a professional audience. But you know what, guys, it's a great platform to engage one-on-one with people. If at a very minimum, I've had conversations with people in our industry over the last few months, like Jay Bear and Michael Stelzner, and people that otherwise I've been connected to for years, but probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to have intimate dialogue with them if it wasn't for Snapchat. Saba.
So one of the myths that I hear very frequently is the fact that, my content is going to go away in 24 hours. And why would I create content if it, leaves the platform and it's so fleeting? And the answer is that when was the last time that you saw a tweet after 3 minutes, right? When was the last time, if the Facebook algorithm didn't say your post was important, that's going to show up on someone's feed, right? Things are moving fast. Life moves fast. The world moves fast. Technology is increasingly making things quicker. Our attention spans are shrinking. And so Snapchat makes the most sense for people who are looking to create content and to actually communicate to an audience. And so this idea of, I don't want to create content because it's going to go away in 24 hours. You're creating a 10-second video, adding a filter, adding some text, and you're sending it off. There's not that much that you need to be doing in terms of production, quote unquote. And so I wanted to debunk that myth because people are so worried about fleeting content. And to be honest, I'm happy that it's fleeting because it makes people put out content every single day, and it doesn't allow for people to lean on vanity metrics to basically slide through and support their credibility and their validity on a platform. You have to continuously proving your audience why they should be consuming your content. And that's what I love about it. Thank you for having us, Roberto. If you guys want to be found, be discovered, connect with a new community of Snapchat users, you can go to snapchat.directory. There is a link there where you can click to add your username. And once you do, people can add you through a URL. There's also an instructional video that I've created where you can basically learn how to add others if you're having trouble downloading the Snapchat directory, but it's fairly simple. There's 3 links on the website. Very, very straightforward. The Snapchat course for beginners is a great resource for anyone who wants to get started, who is confused about the tools and features. I go through a lot of the creative components. Carlos does an amazing job at going through engagement, how to get started, a lot of the basics that a lot of people overlook. And so that is an amazing resource on udemy.com/Snapchat course. And if you want the discounted price, you can see it on both of our accounts. The links are there. Finally, you can follow me on Snapchat, which is Saba Sedighi, SABA-SEDIGHI, and I use the same handle on Periscope, Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find me. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you. And thank you to Roberto for having me on his podcast, his video, whatever it may be. I'm just happy to be having a conversation with him.
Woo! Wow, that was a mouthful, Saba. I was say one last myth that I want to debunk is a lot of people often say that Snapchat is for kids. And let me just tell you, over 70% of Snapchat's demographic on the platform is above the age of 18. Snapchat is very transparent with their demographics and with their stats. And if you go to their website, snapchat.com, they have infographics, they have stats openly and readily available on there. And over 70% of their database or of their users is above the age of 18. So it's not a place where just kids go to engage. I will say this, the majority of users predominantly are millennials, yes. But let's face it, millennials are set to outspend baby boomers by the age 2017. So if you're a brand who's wanting to engage with an audience on social media that you want them to buy from you, you need to engage on the platforms where they're using. And Snapchat, guys, is just that. So big thanks to our man Roberto for having us on. Be sure to go ahead and join the directory like Saba said, but also go on iTunes, listen to our podcast episode with Roberto. It's Social 545. And if you want to add me on Snap, you can do it at the Carlos Gil. And that's Gil with 1 L at the end, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, that was tremendous. Thank you both for being on the podcast. Some final thoughts, I love Snapchat as a platform. You know what? Gary Vee dragged me to that platform kicking and screaming, and I'm so thankful he did. I was wrong. Gary was right, as usually is the case. And, you guys have done a tremendous job educating people about the platform, advocating for it, motivating people to get on the platform. Snapchat should be looking very hard at both of you as potential platform/product evangelist. And I'm going to keep nagging them. Remind me once a week to nag them with a tweet, because I will.
I like that you did that, by the way. I noticed that.
I'm going to keep doing it.
I saw what you were doing there.
Yeah, once a week, I'm going to be tagging both of you, and I'm going to be nagging Snapchat and nagging the CEO about you guys being product/platform evangelists. So don't be surprised if you get a call or email. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the largest pull in Twitter, but I am louder than a lot of other people in a very noisy place, and I will get very inventive very quickly. And I will out Twitter video all of you. So
I was gonna say, and gosh, I'm just gonna reveal this secret, this tip here on your podcast or on your YouTube channel. But make sure you tag at Evan Spiegel, which is the CEO and founder of Snap. And the reason why is because Snapchat has over 1 million followers on Snapchat. So chances are they probably don't sit there and read through everyone that tags them in a tweet. Whereas Evan, I want to say, is right around 30 to 40,000 followers on Twitter. So chances are no one knows who he is, so they're not tagging him and stuff. If you really want to get on the CEO's radar, keep tagging him or her on posts as opposed to the brand.
Yeah, I'm going to be video messaging Evan probably on a weekly basis. And if I miss a week, Carlos, hold me accountable, because I'm not kidding. But that's also the value of the relationship I have with both of you guys. You guys have actually motivated me to do another interesting project that I'll talk to you guys about after the show. But I really would love you guys to be a part of this, and it's something that I think you guys would think is very cool. So, let's talk about that after the show. Thank you so much to my guest, Carlos and Saba from the Social 545 podcast. And make sure you're following them in social media. In the show notes, there will be links so you can do that. Make sure you're getting yourself on that Snapchat directory so people can find you and see how you're creating awesome in Snapchat each and every day. I want to thank them again for coming on to the show. You guys were a great interview, and I'm really glad that I kicked it off with you guys for doing part of this new format that I want to introduce, where I talk to other people who are creating awesome things and sharing them with the world. So thank you for helping educate and motivate my audience.
Thanks for having us,
Roberto. Pleasure, Roberto. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So that is it for our show. That was the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. Today's Create Something Awesome challenge. Our Create Awesome challenge for this episode is going to be to get on Snapchat if you're not already. And if you are, I would challenge you to snap me, snap Carlos, and snap Saba and tell us how you're creating awesome. So you guys have a direct invite and direct access, and that is your challenge, my friends. So it's up to you to get out there and create something awesome today.